This is part two of solar project financial analysis. The first was residential, which can be a good investment, but this one is about commercial, which can be crazy profitable, and you will see why. This is Elmer Hall from Strategic Business Planning Company, and we develop the plans that every business needs. As it pertains to sustainability, we have a blog and a website called sustainzine.com that also talks about solar and the cost effectiveness of solar projects. An overview is that the cost of doing nothing is a true cost. You spend money on your utility bills. Solar is a pretty good investment even for nonprofits. And the tax breaks really make it from a decent investment to a great investment for businesses. The tax credit has dropped down from 30% in the past to 26 in 2020, and then it drops off precipitously after that. But in addition to that tax break of tax credit, you get depreciation, which can be 100% in the first year or a maximum of over 5 years. So the net investment could be as little as only half of what the initial investment is after the tax benefits. It could be crazy profitable, and property value increase. There's environmental savings. There's not much in the way of downside. So what is the cost of doing nothing? First, let's assume that it's a $100,000 investment that produces power equivalent of about $7,200 a year, and that in the U.S. we have power inflation of maybe 3% per year. In Florida, possibly 5%. This varies, but historically it has been in that range. So your cost of doing nothing is $7,200 in power every year, which over 10 years, of course, is 72,000 years. 30 years, it's a pretty substantial amount. At 3% increase in power inflation, you're committing to $352,000 in power over a 30-year period that the $100,000 system would replace. A different way of looking at the investment is a $100,000 investment that's paid on the day in which the solar system is launched and active. And then there's the 26,000 investment tax credit, 24,000 or change in terms of the depreciation at a 28% tax rate. And then the first year's savings has gone up in this particular case, so instead of 72,000, it's 73,000, 7,300. It's 26 is what it's gone up to. Another way to look at this investment is a $100,000 investment. Let's say that's the first day of the first year, and during the year you get the investment tax credit back of $26,000 at 26%. You get the savings associated with depreciation of almost $25,000 in this particular case. And then you get the savings, which has gone up to 7,326 because of power inflation. So you're getting much more than 60, you're getting about 60% back the very first year of operations in terms of tax benefits and power savings. Here's an example of how profitable this $10,000 investment could be. Note that after the tax benefits, the investment is actually less than 50,000, less than half. And if you base the return each year at no inflation, no power inflation, it's about 14.5, maybe 13 to 15% return on investment, net investment each year, which is crazy profitable considering that you are already spending the money that you're using to pay this off, probably if you did a loan. You're using that same money you would have been spending on power anyway. So it's basically spent money that you're using. That's kind of a subtlety that's kind of hard to really get your hands around. It's a long-term investment, a very long-term investment, because you'll be producing power in 30, 40, maybe even 50 years. And so the return on investment may be 6 years. 25 years is something you probably might consider using as your planning horizon simply because that is when the warranties tend to drop off. Keep in mind that warranties are not all created equal. Sometimes they just cover a part of the investment if something goes wrong. And the other thing to consider is that the depletion rate, and they will only warranty up to the depletion rate. So panels deplete every year, sometimes at a very fractional amount, sometimes a not so fractional amount. All solar systems, solar companies, and solar warranties are not created equal. So you look at this, you have a net present value over 25 years of about $100,000 positive on a net investment that was only 50. If you look at the long years, you'll see that the return on investment, internal rate of return, gets to be more than 50% at about more than 15% right after you get 25 years. Here's a cumulative cash flow chart that's kind of interesting. The investment is cash out of pocket of $100,000. You get more than half of that back in terms of tax savings over the first year. And then you get the annual savings, which accelerates over time. In this case, I believe it's 2.5% anticipated annual inflation. And so you'll end up with collectively covering the investment and about $250,000 you would have had flowing in over a 30-year period. One of the things that many businesses do, however, is use a line of credit or take a loan for, say, 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years to pay for this investment. So then there's no cash out of pocket. They would often try to arrange it to where there is no interest for the first year or two until they get the tax benefits back. So then instead of being a $100,000 loan after the tax benefits come in, it would be less than 50. And then the payments will always be less than what the power payments would have been to the power company. The value of the property appreciates substantially when you have your own power plant that produces the power. In this case, the savings are $7,200 a year, and that goes up over time as the power company would and does raise its rates. So someone buying it has that savings built in. The a number that comes out of a Berkeley Lawrence study is that it could be as much as 20 times the annual savings. So if the savings was 7,200, 20 times that is 144,000. That's the estimated appreciation from the power savings. And then you have the investment of 100,000. Well, really half of that. The return on investment is huge, even on basically the first day of the investment. One of the most subtle parts of this type of investment is the nuance of an investment in which you're working from savings. It takes a whole lot more sales to make the same amount of money that you get from simply savings. So, for example, a company that has 10% profit margins would have to make $100,000 increased in sales to end up with a $10,000 savings. Now, in this case, we weren't saving 10,000; we were saving 7,200. But over a few years, probably, I think it's probably 10 years, that number goes up to $10,000. So the savings is essentially a perpetuity of savings, and the investment is quite different than the typical investment, where you invest a certain amount of money, you get money back. You invest in trucks or something, you get money back in the usage of them. This is quite a different investment because you are already spending over 30 years. You're spending maybe $500,000 in power costs. But wait, the great investment just got better. What if you need a support structure? You need a roof canopy, something in order to put the solar system, to mount the solar system. That structure could be subject to the tax benefits that you get. The 26% investment tax credit. If that's the case, let's say a canopy. If you had an additional $100,000 investment to do a canopy for a parking garage, parking lot, and you're going to put solar on top, you must have, obviously, the support structure in order to do the project. That 100,000 would also be subject to the tax credit, the investment tax credit. So the 26% tax credit goes toward the full $200,000 investment in this case. That's $52,000 at that point for the whole investment. Then you have the depreciation for just the solar part of it. Obviously, you get the depreciation for the other part as well, but just to make it clean as it relates to the solar, then you end up with a total of $76,000 total tax benefits in the first year. Obviously, that gives you 76 more than that. That means that you're only paying about $24,000 net for the solar investment of $100,000. It does not get any better than that. Oh, and then there's the additional environmental costs of traditional power. In the United States, it's now nat gas is number one, coal, and then nuclear as our primary sources of energy. Those have massive amounts of resource use and pollution in the case of the fossil fuels. So those savings, if we were to pay full cost for what they really cost, those additional savings would be even more, and we don't have to pay for them. But for example, in what we're doing, it would be the same as taking 8 cars off of the road per year, and the savings in water is really quite a massive amount for the traditional power. So this is a great investment that gets even better when you consider the environmental aspects of it. It's a great investment even without the tax credits, which are reducing and going away relatively soon. Environmental savings are huge. Businesses want to do business with business partners who are sustainable for many reasons. There's even requirements by many of the suppliers that the supply chain be more carbon neutral. The employees want to work for greener companies. Customers want to do business with greener businesses. And to be long-term business, a company must, by its very definition, be a sustainable business. So this is a case of doing well by doing good. So you should go out and do both. This is Elmer Hall with Strategic Business Planning Company. We develop the plans that every business needs. For business planning in general, we're at sbplan.com. Intellectual property-wise, we're at ipplan.com, and we have a blog related to sustainability that contains this type of information on sustainability and profitability of sustainability at sustainzine.com. Come visit and follow us. Thank you.